Koi came to stand between us, juice on her chin. "Mummy, can I show Auntie my school bag?" "Another day," I said lightly. The woman's smile stretched. Even rubber knows how to stretch without breaking. "I can help you with them," she offered later, eyes sliding to Chigo. "You know, some afternoons, if you want to rest, I can carry him downstairs for Breeze." "Thank you," I said. "We are keeping a simple routine. It is working for us." My voice was honey. My no was clear. She cocked her head like a lizard under sun. "You don't trust people?" "I trust God," I replied, still smiling. "And the systems he taught me." After she left, Amanda, who had arrived mid-oranges, leaned on my kitchen counter and said what I was already thinking. "Be careful with that one. Her eyes have teeth." We laughed, then we prayed, laughter turning into song under our breath, as we wiped the same clean counter twice. There was a Sunday, the pastor called families forward for Thanksgiving, and we went with a salt bag of gratitude. Koi, in her yellow dress with white dots like boiled maize, clapped too hard and offbeat, and nobody corrected her because joy is not a metronome. The pastor smiled the way good men smile when they know the inside story and won't use it to own you. He did not ask for details. He called us a name I have held close, a house redeemed. We danced in a small circle that felt like a ring of fire. A woman from the choir pressed an envelope into my hand. She whispered, "For fuel," and winked. And I knew God was practicing small kindnesses with our address again. When Chigo's naming ceremony came, we did it like people who have studied fences. The living room smelled like baby powder, cloves, and the dust of new cola. Aunties came, but the chair by the door belonged to Amanda, her eyes measuring the door the way a tailor measures waist. Mrs. Ochugo sat near the altar shelf, hands folded, face soft as Gary soaked just right. We spread our names on the childlike cloth. Chigo, the one God blesses. Oganero, God is my helper. Efiogene, God's gift. The old man who led the prayers asked for palm wine. We brought Zobo. He didn't complain. He put his palm on Chigo's head and said a thing that felt like music. And my heart said, Amen before my lips did. When neighbors asked to carry him, we smiled and said, Another day. When gifts came, we laid them on the big Bible and prayed until Russells turned to rivers, until coins became simple coins. Our home, for a while, was a small fortress that smelled like stew, ink, and oil. Trouble knows how to dress in ordinary clothes. One afternoon, heat sitting like a big man on everything, the landlord called a compound meeting under the mango tree. I tied my wrapper tight because there is a way you sit when rent and rules are being discussed. The orange woman sat opposite me, mouth already opening and closing like a nightjar. The landlord spoke of repainting and cash. We nodded because it was true, the yellow was fading to dust. Midway, a young man from the back started to shake. A small jerky movement like someone learning how to dance badly. His girlfriend laughed, then stopped when his eyes rolled. Seizure. The word jumped into my mouth before I stood. I was already moving the table aside. Lie him on his side. Loosen the collar. Amanda had trained with me through Fears University. She was there too. The two of us quiet as we worked. Someone shouted, "Put spoon in his mouth!" And I slapped the air with my voice. No! The seizure passed like a rough bus that didn't stop. He lay there sweating, and the orange woman's eyes found mine. Respect, reluctant and real, sat down on her face. Afterwards she came, slow, rapper whispering. You sabi many things, she said. Experience taught me, I answered. She cut her eyes. People said you're forming. Now I see you're guarding. I didn't correct her. Let people name your fence how they like. The tomatoes still ripen behind it. There was a day I met a man whose cologne pulled a memory thread I didn't want to touch. It was in the bank, those cold halls where time cues and patience is asked to write an exam. He was in a sharp white caftan, smile polished, palms soft with money. He smiled at every baby, every woman holding a baby. I felt nausea rise like a small tide. I held Chigo closer. He saw me, and his smile swam across the room like an eager fish. "Madam, your baby is fino. Let me bless him with something." His hand went into his pocket. My mouth became a door with a bolt. "No, thank you," I said, polite, cool. He widened the grin. "It's just money." "I know," I said, every syllable a wall brick, "and I don't build cribs with money from strangers." His eyes flickered, just for a breath, like the generator when the fridge starts. "I only want to help. Help us by keeping your gift," I said, and turned away so my son could breathe air without his scent in it. My hand shook later in the car, not from fear, but from the weight of not repeating history. I told Madhu, and he squeezed my knee and said, "You closed a gate my foolishness once left open. Thank you." On nights when the generator slept and the sky remembered stars, I sat with my notebook and wrote my children letters they would read when their knees were taller than my waist. I wrote that tenderness is not weakness, that boundaries are love's good shoes, that the world is a market where not every seller sells what they claim. I wrote that prayers are ropes we throw ahead of us and then pull ourselves along. I wrote their names like laws. Koi will be a river that doesn't forget its source. Chigo will be an iroko whose first whisper made the forest hush. We learned to forgive too, in a way that did not open our gates. One evening, a message crawled into my phone from a number I didn't save. "Madam, please, I am sorry for how I behaved. I was going through things." It was the orange woman. I stared at the words and felt the small tug of the God who keeps forgiving me before I finish my sentences. "Peace," I typed back. "We are all learning. God keep your household." I did not invite her in. I did not sharpen my reply with pride. I let kindness be a fence too. Koi became the kind of child who prays for geckos and names them. She asked one day why we put oil on her head every morning. "Because we are teaching the day to treat you well," I said. "Does it listen?" she asked. "Even if it doesn't," I replied, "you will remember who you are." At school, she made a drawing of our family, stick people with big smiles, a small brown dog we did not own, a blue house with a big yellow door. "Why the big door?" I asked. "So our friends can come," she said. "Where is the gate?" I asked. She added it with green crayon, tall and beautiful. "We choose who enters," she said, like someone repeating a lesson. There were setbacks that tried to put their feet out so we would stumble. A fever that came and left without explanation. A job opportunity that slid away from Madhu at the last interview. A bill that arrived dressed as surprise. But they did not break our back. We had grown muscle under the skin of prayer. When fear knocked, we invited faith to answer the door and serve cola nut. When worry tried to hold a family meeting in my chest, I recited psalms until it lost its agenda. If bitterness came with a bowl, I refused to supply water. There is a point after many altars where you refuse to let your heart become a shrine for shadows. One harmattan morning, air thin and white as if someone had sieved it, we took the children to the river. Worry River lay there, long and brown, pretending to be lazy while carrying barges like secrets. Koi held my hand and asked if the river had a name. "All rivers have many names," I said. We threw pebbles and watched rings grow, each ring pushing another ring until the water forgot the beginning. Amanda spread a wrapper and opened a small feast. Meat pie that flaked like a good joke. Oranges that sobbed sugar. We ate and took turns telling the story of what God did, in short pieces, because long gratitude can become performance. Madhu told the part where his blood found its way into our child. I told the part where a cry came back from a far country and stood in our church with a voice that knew us. Amanda told the part where caution is love, not fear. Mrs. O'Hugo told the part where rules can sit down if mercy is entering. The children told the part where there were snacks. When we returned home, I took my oil and marked the lintel with my thumb, not as magic, but as memory. I stood in the doorway of the kitchen and listened to the stew thinking its thoughts. I pressed my ear to the children's door and heard the sound of healthy sleep. A soft, reputable choir. I found Medu on the balcony, his face open to the evening, and leaned my head on his shoulder. "We are different people now," I said. "We are the same people, but truer," he answered. And I understood him perfectly. If you asked me for a last sentence, I would give you a small handful of them, the way a mother gives fruit to a child for the road. Lock your joy, but let it sing. Pour oil, but also ask questions. Love loud, but not careless. Forgive, but do not misplace your keys. And when your miracle comes, let your first language be gratitude, and your second language be watchfulness. I am Sito, and my voice is a map back to a house where light has learned our names. If the night leans close, it will hear me repeating the liturgy that saved us. Better safe than sorry. Better prayer than panic. Better fences than funerals. Better wisdom than wounds. And in the space between those words, you will hear what keeps us. 2 small breaths. Rising and falling, sure as sunrise. Before that night could arrive, Lack came and knocked and entered without waiting. The hospital suggested another hospital, the way the sea suggests you learn to swim. Our pockets were dry cups. We carried Koi home, because our arms were the only ambulances left. I kept vigil on the sitting room floor, knees raw from pleading with heaven. Prayer became breath. Breath became prayer. The crib sat like a small boat in a storm, and I was both sailor and drowning passenger. When the appointed night met us, we arrived in a church that smelled like dust and declaration. Drums spoke in syllables my bones understood. Hands lifted like yam tendrils finding stakes. The pastor welcomed us with eyes that read the room, the way fishermen read water, looking for movement beneath the surface. We sang until the ceiling learned our names. When the prayers began, they gathered around Koi and called God by the names that make him remember his kindness. Warm palms rested on her, as if building a house around her with fingers. Then the convulsions came, electric waves in a tiny river. The pastor's voice rose. "Press," he said. "Press." Prayer became a pestle, pounding the invisible yam. In the middle of that thunder, one prayer warrior lifted his face and closed his eyes hard, the way a man listens for a whisper inside a storm. "I see a man," he said, and the room stilled. He came when the child was new, put money in her palm, and touched her head in her hand. He looked long into her eyes. He left something there that is not for blessing. The words cut through me with the accuracy of a surgeon's knife. I remembered the parade of palms, the confusion of mouths and kisses, the generous notes pressed into my baby's fist, as if money could teach her to hold. Shame tried to splash me. Fear tried to climb my back. The pastor's voice did not let them. "Not every joy visitor is a friend," he said. "But there is a name that collects what should not be in a child." We prayed until language felt small, and only groans made sense. Then Koi cried. A cry with muscle, a cry that opened windows inside my chest, where there had been none. Her voice returned like rains returning to a deserted field. We stood in the middle of that sound, and knew the curse had been picked up like a stone and thrown far from our house. The church broke into thank yous. I put my cheek on the cool tile and wept a river that did not drown me. We went home with a baby who slept like peace had written her a lullaby. I watched her chest rise and fall like a small festival, like dancers who did not tire. In the quiet, Amanda's words returned, wearing the coat of wisdom. Not every smile is a blessing. I told Madhu, and we sat in the dark, mapping our foolishness and our mercy. He held my face and said, "We will move." I asked, "With what money?" he said, with faith and alone. So we packed quietly, the way a snail packs, slow and complete, and left the street that knew our size too well. We moved by night, one box at a time, until morning found us where gossip could not. In the new place, we learned the economy of silence. We made friends with curtains. We greeted neighbors with warmth that did not hand them keys. I put oil on Koi's forehead each morning, the way my mother put oil on Yampan to keep it from sticking, and I said words that wrapped my child in something stronger than the cloth on her. You will be water where fire burns, light where darkness sits. Your blood will not answer strange names. Koi grew like a story that had found its right teller. She sat, she crawled, she stood, she danced. She ate pawpaw and smiled like the sun had moved into her mouth. Madu found work that was enough like a well that knows its own depth. I began to write again at the dining table at night, fitting paragraphs between prayers and baby breaths, earning small money that taught me respect for seed. When my belly swelled again, we held the news like an egg, warm inside our palms, safe from careless hands. I walked softly in my body, scanned the faces of those who asked questions, and answered with a smile that gave nothing away. The boy arrived, Chigo, God blesses, and the house widened to accommodate his laughter. We placed gifts on our open Bible and prayed over the coins and notes until they were only what they claimed to be and nothing else. We learned to say no with a sweetness that could not be mistaken. He is sleeping, we told visitors. Thank you for coming. We learned that protection is not fear. It is stewardship. We learned that joy is not a show glass. It is a garden with a gate and a key. Sometimes at dawn, when the children are still, I step into the corridor where the air is cool and the world is beginning its small noises. Broom whispers, kettle songs, the first okada clearing its throat. I think of those 5 years of asking, of the night we borrowed God's strength, of the woman whose hands were a bridge to our miracle, of Amanda's caution that arrived dressed as annoyance and stayed behind as revelation. I think of how easily we forget that new life is a tender flame and how quickly loose winds can try to play with it. I lay palms on sleeping heads and trace invisible crosses I learned as a child. I draw a fence you can't see. I am not afraid now. I am awake. The world has its shadows, yes, but it also has lamps and songs and names we can call that call us back. In the market, when women bend over smoked fish and call out fine madam, I smile and buy and return home, where my two small nations are learning to laugh in two different keys. Madu kisses me in the kitchen and says my stew tastes like victory. We bless our door and open it with care. If I were to write my life in chalk on a school slate, this is what I would write before the rain comes to claim it. Patience can be a womb. Danger sometimes wears perfume. Love must learn locks. Wisdom is not fear. Joy requires tending. And there is a God who hears, even when our words are only water on pillowcases. I am Sito, daughter of a God who doesn't misplace names. I live in a house where children sleep like promises kept, where a husband hums on Saturday mornings, where oil shines on little foreheads, where our altar is not a piece of furniture, but a breathing thing made of gratitude. And every morning, before the city remembers how to be loud, I whisper to the day the same way Harmattan whispers to roofs, be kind to us. We have learned. We are still learning. We will not forget. I should tell you what happened after the house learned how to sleep again. After we packed our joy into boxes and carried it across town like contraband fire. Peace is not a thing you buy once and forget. It is a garden, and gardens ask for water, for weeding, for watchfulness. At first, our days were soft as a kara inside, the kind you press and it springs back. Koi's laughter returned like morning birds and nested in our curtains. Chigo's cry was a clean bell. Madu whistled when he shaved. I cooked stew that tasted like gratitude with pepper, and the pot scraped clean because we licked and licked. But even sweetness has shadows. When you have been thirsty for too long, your body keeps a memory of drought. I woke sometimes with my palm already on Koi's chest, counting the little hills of her breath in the dark, as if checking a secret bank account that could disappear. Worry, even in this new neighborhood, held on to its habits. Generators coughing like old men at 7 p.m. The smell of kerosene kissing plantain on iron pans. The wail of a far-off siren that might be police or a party. I learned the names of women who sat on their doorsteps at dusk, with wrappers tied high, knees shining with lotion, gossiping like carpenters, neat, quick, precise. I greeted them with my smile set to polite, never open. Amanda came on Sundays with chin-chin and a look that said she was counting my blessings with me, not for me. Sometimes she stayed to braid Koi's hair into neat rivers. Each line a prayer she muttered under her breath. Your head will carry wisdom, she said, parting, weaving, tying, and your eyes will see trouble and step aside. Koi would look up sideways and grin. Auntie, is that in the Bible? It is in my grandmother, Amanda replied. I found a rhythm. Morning oil on little foreheads. Small devotions murmured, while kettle sang. Madhu's quick kiss, like punctuation before he stepped into the day. Me, at the dining table at night, stitching words for strangers, in far places, who wanted their stories ironed and folded. I wrote until my wrist ached. Then I prayed until the ache turned into warmth. Then I slept. Some evenings, I took the children to the balcony and taught them the names of clouds. And Koi said the big, fluffy kind looked like fufu in the sky. And I agreed, because we were both right. But peace tests you. It tests whether you have learned to lock your gate from the inside too. There was a woman who began to stop by with oranges. Her wrapper was always loud, colors that shouted, and her mouth was busier than her hands. She was the type to admire a thing and dig her nails into it at the same time. The first day, she knocked with sweetness. I just moved 2 streets away. Neighbor must know neighbor. I smiled the kind of smile you use to cover a pot so the flies don't get in. She offered oranges. I offered water. She took the glass, and her eyes took my house. Corners, curtains, the new fan we had saved for, the children's small shoes by the mat. Madam Writer, God is doing it, she said. And I nodded, catching the place where her compliment bent like a crooked nail. I will speak softly, because the night is listening. I will speak as the harmattan wind speaks when it rubs its dry palm along the zinc roofs of Worry and carries secrets from one compound to another. I will tell you how joy entered my house, like the first rain of the season, and how fear tried to drink it, like parched earth. My name is Sito, a dark-skinned woman with eyes that have seen both the honey of life and the bitter cola. I married my friend, my stubborn, gentle river, Madhu, under a neem tree behind St. Mark's, where the choir's voices rose like white egrets taking flight. We danced that day. Our feet wrote our names into the red sand. People said our laughter sounded like twin bells, small and bright, and that the sun loved how we loved each other, because it lingered on our faces long after evening should have come. Worry wrapped us in its noise. Okada horns arguing with market women, the smell of diesel mixing with frying plantain, the metallic taste of rain that never asks for permission. We had good jobs, clean ironed shirts, a fridge that hummed like a well-fed cat, a bed that remembered our shapes. We had prayers too, small and persistent like pepper seeds. Every dawn found our 2 shadows kneeling side by side, fingers laced, foreheads low. God Biko, bless our house with a child. We whispered into the tile floor until the tile learned our names. 5 years we said it. 5 years the calendar tore its own pages and threw them away. 5 years my arms ached for weight that didn't come. People brought advice the way the sea brings salt. You don't ask, it just arrives. Relax, some said. Adopt, others said. And a few, their tongues sharpened by ignorance, asked in low voices if I had checked myself. I smiled small smiles and kept my tears for the bathroom, where the water could pretend it was the one crying. When my belly finally bloomed, it bloomed without trumpet. The line on the test strip was shy, like a girl at her first dance, and I pressed both palms to my stomach and laughed. A laugh that startled the lizard on the window ledge. Madu came home with roasted corn, saw my eyes, and dropped the nylon bag like it was on fire. We collided in the corridor, and the corn rolled away like tiny yellow suns. He cried into my neck, and I into his shirt, and our joy tasted like salt and smoke. The neighborhood heard before we told them. Joy, like rumor, has fast feet. Aunties came with palm oil and proverbs. Uncles with bitter stout for blood. Neighbors with names we didn't ask for. Everybody had something to give, even if it was only their curiosity. Pregnancy turned me into a small country, governed by sleep, hunger, and wonder. I learned the slow government of breath, the politics of ankles that swelled by noon. I spoke to my belly like one speaks to a river that has finally agreed to visit. Come gently, come singing. I recognized mango season, not by fruit on trees, but by how she kicked when I cut the first one open. I played her songs, old hymns that smelled like kerosene lanterns, and Fela that tastes like rebellion. Madu read psalms into my belly at night, his voice a low drum that calmed both of us. When she came with a cry that cleaved the air cleanly, a sound that made me believe that angels clap. The midwife placed a small brown slippery miracle on my chest, and I named her Kosi, Koi for short, because it pleased the Lord to open a door we had bent upon for years. The house became a shrine of soft sounds. The sigh of milk letting down, the squeak of clean nappies, the tiny whistles she made in her sleep. People arrived with gifts and greetings the way Harmattan arrives with dust, everywhere, on everything. God has done it, they exclaimed, mouths sweet with molten meat pie. They pressed Naira notes into her fists, and I laughed saying, "Start saving, my child." They lifted her, kissed her, breathed into her, naming her with their hopes. Doctor, lawyer, pastor, pilot, engineer. I thought their love was a fence. I did not know that joy needs a gate as well. Amanda came one evening, steady and practical, like a double-stitched seam. She watched the traffic in my parlor with quiet eyes, accepted a glass of Zobo, and waited until the last congratulator had left, with their laughter trailing behind like ribbons. "Sito," she said, drawing me aside, "don't let everyone carry her." She said it with a softness that did not take back its seriousness. I wanted to laugh, and did laugh. The light kind that says, a thing does not apply to me. "They are family," I replied. "Friends," she nodded with a mouth that wasn't agreeing. "I know, but not every smile is a blessing. Some palms carry sand." Madu, when I told him, kissed my forehead. "Let people rejoice with us," he said. "Shine no be sin." And I, drunk on light, agreed. If caution is a lamp, I had turned mine down so visitors wouldn't think me rude. 3 months later, Dawn found me arranging a tiny dress with yellow lemons printed on it. The daycare was close to my office. The bag was packed with breast milk, labeled like a laboratory. My new life organized into small, hopeful boxes. I reached into the crib with lemon light in my chest and felt heat with my fingers. Koi burned like a secret flame. Her eyes had rolled back into white moons, and I screamed a sound that didn't sound like my own. Madu was there, wet from the shower, the floor collecting water from his feet and fear from his eyes. We moved like a single body, rapping, running, riding, a car that forgot how to obey traffic laws. Worry moving aside because grief was using the horn. Hospitals are countries where time has no passport. Nurses with quick hands, doctors with faces carved from concentration, a blood bank that smelled like iron and urgency. Her hemoglobin is dangerously low, the doctor said. The word dangerously was a stone dropped into a well. I listened and never heard it hit the bottom. Madhu's arm offered itself before his brain formed the thought. Take, he said. Take from me. They did, and she brightened, then dimmed again, then brightened again, a faulty generator flickering through nights that would not end. Seizures came like unwelcome relatives, sudden and loud, leaving the house in disarray. We learned the choreography of emergency. Loosen, turn, call her back with our voices. The nurses taught me the smell of panic and the shape of hope. Money, that stubborn goat, began to leave our compound. Savings thinned like morning fog. Salary advances slid into our palms, and then out into the open mouths of bills. Friends lent us umbrellas while the rain gathered, and sometimes the umbrellas had holes. Still we walked. I resigned from work because the calendar had only baby and hospital written on it, and my body had only worry and prayer. I watched my face become a map of nights, my eyes 2 lakes where birds rested briefly and flew away. Doctors looked at charts, as if the paper might confess what the blood would not. We have run all the tests, they said. We do not understand why it keeps dropping. In the ward of white light and echoes, Koi shrank until the bed looked too big for her. Her cry, my bell, went quiet, and that silence frightened me more than the seizures. Sometimes at night I put my ear to her chest to hear that small drum insist on living. I whispered bargains into her hair. Take my strength, I told her. Wear it like a wrapper. Mrs. Ojugo found us in that sterile twilight. The matron whose voice carried the softness of old cloth and the firmness of a well-stitched hem. She sat by me and asked for our story, and I poured it into her hands. When I was done, her eyes shone the way rivers shine when the moon is generous. I have been praying, she said, and we will pray more. Some sickness wears a white coat. Some sickness wears a shadow. Either way, God knows where to touch. There was a place in her certainty that I could sit down and rest. She promised a night of prayer, a vigil where voices would climb a ladder of song and fetch answers down.